All right, what is happening, everyone? Welcome back to SBST. You already know me, I'm Milan. Alongside me, as always, is Bowen. Bowen, you want to say hello?
It's good, Milan. It's Thursday, I believe. Thursday, May 6th. And yeah, we're doing our first NBA show. Past couple shows have been football heavy, but today we're getting into the great sport of basketball and NBA talk. So let's get it going.
Yes, sir. Because if you don't really follow basketball a lot, like if you don't know, this season has been much more different from previous seasons. It's
100%.
been shortened. The parity of the league is completely flipped upside down, I would say personally. Uh, a lot of teams switched up, but we'll get into it. We'll start with the Eastern Conference.
Yep.
Me and Bowen both go to school in Toronto, so we'll both talk about first and foremost the Toronto Raptors, who have had one of the most upsetting seasons in probably the last 10 years, I'd say. Maybe a little bit less. Since they made the playoffs for the first time, I'd say this is the most upsetting season.
In terms of underachievement, definitely, right? Because the Raps, I'm looking at the standings right now. They're 27-39. And they're 3 games out of that final 10th play-in game, which we'll talk about later. But and actually, man, I should be giving you the floor on this one, my guy, because I'm not a Raptors fan. You are. Just tell me what's the vibe been from the start? Just like give me a run through.
Well, I mean, like to say I'm shocked by this would be lying because everything comes to an end eventually.
Yep.
I saw this kind of coming specifically with Pascal Siakam towards the end of the last season. In the bubble, this dude was pretty tragic, if I say so myself. Like, it seemed like he only realized he can only do one move in basketball, which is a spin move, and it was a disaster. Lowry, he's been injured here and there this season, along with probably half the league, but we'll get to that later.
Yeah.
And like, I mean, what more can you ask for? We lost some power. We lost some strength in the front court when we lost Marc Gasol and Serge Ibaka. Marc Gasol probably not as big of a loss as Ibaka was, considering the versatility of Ibaka. But now that we have to replace him with Aaron Baines of all players,
Right. Yeah.
hasn't been great. With all due respect to Aaron Baines. But yeah, I mean, listen, at the end of the day, the Raps still have Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri, all he needs is one draft window, one time of missing the playoffs, and we'll be right back in the mix. Doesn't mean we're going to be challenging for the title, but we'll be right back in the playoff mix, a first or a second round team. That's probably our ceiling without a superstar, because for some reason Toronto can never get a superstar out here unless it's through a trade.
Yep. And the thing for me is, I think, honestly, all the Raptors need is a bit of a reset. I think last season, at the conclusion of the Raptors season, going out in 7 games to Boston in the second round, I think they really hit a ceiling. And I was saying this all along last year, that they hit a ceiling, and that was the maximum they could achieve without a superstar player, as in Kawhi Leonard. I think this year, it's very, very tough. These guys are going to live in Tampa Bay. They're not even in Toronto. They have to totally move locations entirely. That takes you out of your element, right? Like you're not going home. You're going staying wherever they're staying in Tampa. So, and just
let's be fair here. Like,
that's not the whole reason for their bad season.
Yeah.
It definitely contributes to it.
100%. Sorry to cut you off. It's just, let's be fair here. Like, there's a lot more worse places in the world that you can play than Florida. Like, literally 100%. Living in like sunny Florida every day of your life, and these people are complaining they want to be back in Toronto or under lockdown every minute of the day. Oh my god.
I'm just saying, man. It plays a part. But yeah, like the on-court stuff. Which is actually where the games are won and lost. Bringing in a guy like Aaron Baines to replace outgoings of Serge Ibaka, Marc Gasol, Kyle Lowry. There was a lot of stuff going on with him. We thought he was going to get traded. Didn't happen. They traded Norman Powell. I like that trade for them. Get Gary Trent Jr. in return. I think he has, and I think it's just a bit of a lost season. Write this one off. Come back stronger. Hopefully next year. for you as a Raptors fan. But anything else you want to say on that, or is it time to put this Raptors season to bed, in your opinion?
Just quickly wanted to, because you mentioned Lowry, it
Yep.
looks to be like he's gone. Once the off season starts, it looks to be that he's gone. To be honest,
Yep.
He's the greatest Raptor in the history of the Raptors franchise, the short history of the Raptors franchise, but he is the greatest Raptor. So if there is a statue of any player outside of the Scotiabank Arena, it better be Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry.
I always liked DeRozan over Lowry until the season that we won the ring. I wasn't a fan of Lowry. I thought he wasn't showing up in the playoffs, and all he needed was just someone to push him, someone like Kawhi, like a superstar that can push him to the edge. Because in that game 6, he was massive. He was majority of the reason we won the championship back in 2019.
In 2019, right? Yeah, no.
So it's gonna be we're gonna miss him for sure. But we just don't have the money to be paying that old of a player that's slowly regressing.
Yeah, and
hopefully he does something wherever he goes, whether it's Philly or I don't know.
Wherever he ends up. But where did you think, had he gotten traded, and obviously it didn't happen, do you think that the Raptors should have cashed in on Kyle Lowry at that point in time at the trade deadline? This is obviously long in the past now. It's May.
100%.
A couple months ago. You think they should have cashed in?
They should have, but they did the right thing by not cashing in onto the lowballing offers that they were getting. Like right. The Lakers were disrespecting Kyle Lowry with the kind of offers they were giving us for him. Like it just wasn't like, yeah, I guess they don't have that much to trade, but you're also the Lakers, and someone like Kyle Lowry with championship pedigree will change your franchise, change your odds in the finals coming up against whoever's coming out of the East, because there's going to be a ton of strong teams coming out of the East this year.
He's
potentially strong teams.
Yeah, he's been in the playoffs year in, year out, pretty much bar this year with the Raptors. Not every year, but you know what I mean? Like the constant deep runs, at least to the second round. Obviously won a championship, was a focal point of that team. I don't know. I thought he was going to get traded. This is not a trade deadline pod. This is a May 6th pod. We're well beyond that point in time, but I was just really surprised to see him stay. But it's tough because for him, it's kind of, a wasted season. He's only getting older. He's not getting any younger. I'm not a big Kyle Lowry fan myself, but I respect what he's done for the franchise. He brought a title to the city of Toronto. He helped build a really solid base for that organization. And who knows where he goes from here? As you said, he's probably leaving, and it'd be a really tough note for him to leave because he wouldn't even get to play on Canadian soil in Toronto. It'd be his last game wherever that may be. It's just kind of a sad ending, I think, the way the Kyle Lowry era is going to end. And I don't want to start off the show with a bad mood to set the tone, but it's just the way it is.
You think of that. I think of the fact that Vince Carter retired the day before coronavirus shut down the world.
Yeah,
that killed me. Like I respect Vince Carter a lot for what he's done for basketball in Canada, but I'm also not a fan of how he left us and what he did to the organization. That's why I'm never gonna be on the hype train of Vince Carter's the greatest Raptor, anything of that sort. I honestly dislike him with all due respect.
Yeah, well, he left the Raptors high and dry. Like he did great things for them, but he didn't want to be there, and it showed. And obviously that we're well past that now. Many years have gone by, but just the disrespect he showed at the time was pretty astounding.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kyle Lowry definitely. I think he loves the Raptors in his heart, but will he be retiring as a Raptor? Probably not. I don't think.
He'll retire on like a one day, but he won't be retiring his playing career there. That's for sure. I don't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to be paying him that much. I don't.
Paying 38, 37 years. Yeah, no, that's not going to happen. And this is however many games left with the Raps he's got. But on to the next topic. What do we want to talk about? Keep it in the East or?
Yeah, let's just go through all the East and we'll go through all the West afterwards.
Sounds good. So Brooklyn Nets is the next point up here. Brooklyn Nets. They've had quite the season, Milan. They obviously traded for James Harden back earlier in the season. They are currently second in the Eastern Conference with a record of 43-23, 2 games back of first place behind the Philadelphia 76ers. Milan, what do you think of the Nets season so far? We're not going to get into every team, of course, but what do you think of the Nets, how they're constructed, how the obviously big three is going to play out? What are your thoughts on their season as a whole?
Well, listen, the first and foremost thing that we got to talk about is we've barely seen the Brooklyn Nets at full power yet. You know, each time we see them with all 3 superstars, one of them gets injured, and then we end up seeing only 2 of them for a solid 20 to 30 games. We don't know. Like, the narrative that was built before Harden was traded for is that there's only one basketball. Listen, I wholeheartedly agree with that. There's only one basketball, and you can't have 3 guys that want to have the final shot try to get the final shot, and none of them really be defensive superstars, you know? But they're playing well still. I mean, they were recently the first seed. I think Philly just overtook them just a little while ago again. Now that Embiid's been back, but Brooklyn has been playing well. I don't know if they're gonna make it all the way, even though they're favorites 100%. Like, they are the out and out biggest favorites of any NBA championship I've seen in the last 10 years. Even
the last 10 years.
I don't think I think this team is more favored to win the championship than the 73-9 Golden State Warriors, me personally.
Well, that's another talking point in itself. But for me, I'd say in the last 10 years, probably you'd have to throw the first KD year Warriors in there, would you not? The year after he signed, I think that was the juggernaut. That was the Death Star if we're talking about biggest favorites to me.
Yeah, but then you've got, James Harden is putting up 35 points a game. You got KD, who's pretty healthy. You've got Kyrie, who isn't even that healthy, and he's still putting up fantastic numbers. Got to give him credit.
Yeah.
Still a defensive liability, still overrated in my opinion, but it is what it is.
But they're making it work. They're making it work.
They
right?
are.
And
they
that's
are.
the thing. That's the thing with Brooklyn. I didn't want to cut you off, but that's the thing with the Nets is these guys can outscore any other team in their sleep if they put their mind to it. And that's two different things. Obviously, I kind of misspoke, but the point is, these guys can outscore anybody in the league on any given night. It's just a matter of, can they do that? Like, the big issue with them is obviously rim protection. Their defense has been shaky and been exposed at times. They've gone out and signed Blake Griffin. Obviously, LaMarcus Aldridge was there for a cup of coffee, and then he called it quits. But so yeah, they got this juggernaut squad. I don't know if it's going to result in the championship, but I'd certainly pencil them in the East Finals at least, and they better be in the NBA Finals, man. If these guys can't reach the finals, if these guys can't reach the finals, the scenes on Twitter are going to be ridiculous. It's going to be the night the Clippers choked the 3-1 lead last year, but times 100.
No, I'm gonna unleash. I'm telling you right now, Kyrie does not want to find my Twitter if the Nets don't win the ring this year. Kyrie does not want to find my Twitter.
Nah, they gotta be my favorites to come out of the East. It doesn't matter if they're the first seed or not. I think, just the scoring. It's 3 generational ball handlers, 3 generational scorers on one team. Yeah, there's one basketball, but these guys are gonna find open looks, get each other buckets. They just got to stay healthy, and that's another big thing is health. Steve Nash has coached them well enough to this point. But again, how hard is it to coach these guys when you have 3 guys?
That's what I'm saying. He reminds me a lot of like Luke Walton on the Warriors when he was coaching that like 20 game run when they won like 19-1 or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're coaching them, but you have nothing to do with their success. Like, you literally, he's never coached today. He reminds me a lot of like Pirlo. Like, he was a good player, but you're not coaching anything, bro. You're not doing anything.
And to that point, you could argue kind of like a Steve Kerr. Obviously, Steve Kerr came in and took over that roster from Mark Jackson and then elevated them to the team they become. But yeah, I think, no, for me, the Nets this year, they better be in the finals. They have to be.
I wouldn't be shocked
if they're not. These guys are in
the
prime of their career.
I wouldn't be shocked if they're not, though. That's all I'm saying.
I think that'd be shocking. I think that'd be genuinely shocking.
It's shocking for the rest of the NBA, but it's because for me, I just listen. In every sport, everyone's always said defense wins titles, and the biggest weakness that the Brooklyn Nets have is their defense.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest, opportunity that anyone else in the East and in the West have of, taking them out is capitalizing on that specifically, right? You only have
Yeah,
one defensive player, maybe two if you count Blake Griffin, but I don't know. That guy's for
2021
some
Blake
reason,
Griffin. Yeah.
2021 Blake Griffin is, he hasn't dunked in 2 years. Then the first game back, he goes and dunks. So I don't know what I'm supposed to make of him. But at the same time, like, it's Blake Griffin. It's not Blake Griffin from 2012 when he was dunking over Kia cars and stuff,
Yeah, exactly. What are we saying? Have we said enough about the Nets? Are we on to the East Conference leading Philadelphia 76ers? Are we going
Yeah,
to talk
let's do
about
it.
them for a bit?
Let's do it.
So Philadelphia, shout out to them. They have put it together this year. They are currently, as mentioned, first in the Eastern Conference, 45 wins, 21 losses, and two games ahead of the next team in second place. Joel Embiid putting together an MVP case. I don't know if he'll take it home, but they've got it going over there in Philly. I think this has got to be the year for them to do something big because there's always talk swirling about Embiid and Simmons, if they fit or not. It looks like it's working this year. Obviously, Embiid's play is a big part of that. What are you like? Where do you see them going from here on out? Where do you see Philly ending up?
My issue with Philly is that every single year someone comes on and says, "This is their year. This is no
Yeah,
one can beat them. This is their year." And then
right.
every single year it flops, That's what they
Mhm.
said when they had Jimmy Butler,
Yeah,
and it didn't work out because we beat them in 7 off one of the luckiest shots ever, but that's okay. And like, yes, I agree that for me, actually, Embiid before like his long injury break, for me he was the front runner for the MVP. I
I
had him as
agree.
my MVP.
I agree.
This has hurt him a lot being out the last 20 games, or whatever, how long it was. I think Ben Simmons has a legit case for Defensive Player of the Year this year. He's been fantastic in guard 1 to 5. We always knew he could, but his issue's always been, what can you do offensively?
Mhm.
Yeah, you're great. You've got the size of, a big, even though you're a point guard and you play like a point guard. But the issue is you can't shoot the ball. You have no courage to shoot the ball, and you can't shoot the ball, right?
Yeah,
If Tobias Harris has been playing well, I think Doc Rivers is doing a decent job in Philly. But I'm not like I'll see what happens. I'm not hyping up the Sixers because every single year someone hypes them up and then they flop.
Well, yeah, and last year they had a very disappointing playoff exit. Granted, their squad wasn't at full health. Bubble basketball. We're gonna look back on that in a couple of years and go, "What was going on here?" Right? But no, I think this year, if they want to make a serious run, it's got to be this year, man. Because I think if they reach a ceiling in the second round, they get knocked out. Serious decisions are gonna have to be made. Like we talk about the process. This is the process coming to fruition right now. This is the time to do it, man. Philly, step it up because you guys go out in the second round. Might have to get rid of Simmons. Might have to do something big.
You're gonna have to blow it up eventually if it's not working. You can't just keep doing
Right?
this. You're just selling tickets. You're not competing. You're just selling tickets at this point. And right now, you're not even really selling tickets.
You can't even
because
sell
you can't even
tickets.
sell out
Right.
an arena. So what's the point of doing this?
That's tough. That is, yeah. I think that's all we need to say about the 76ers. Up next on our little notes here, New York Knicks. Probably the most exciting team in basketball this year for me. Just based upon what they've done, how they've overachieved so much. They are firmly in the playoff position in 4th place, 37-29, hovering right above the Atlanta Hawks, who a lot of people, myself included, had making the playoff picture. They finally cracked into it this year. Milan, what are our thoughts on the Knicks this season? Is New York basketball truly alive? Is it back?
I'm so happy. Do you understand what I'm gonna do if the New York Knicks make it further than the Brooklyn Nets in the playoffs? I'm gonna unleash, bro. I will unleash. Kyrie is never gonna hear praise from me ever again because my man Derrick Rose is gonna be further in the playoffs than Kyrie if that happens. Listen, I gotta give credit to the Knicks though. The Knicks have been fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Julius Randle is one of the best bigs in the league right now.
Yeah, he's
making
really
a
coming into
really good case for first team All NBA. Everyone was, killing him, murdering him well, not him, I'd say the Knicks, when the Brooklyn Nets were able to sign KD, and they thought the Knicks had a chance on KD and Kyrie and this, that, and the other, and they ended up with Julius Randle. Everyone was crucifying them, saying, what a horrible free agency for you guys. You couldn't get anyone. Julius Randle is just shutting up all the haters right now. He's playing just like he did in that 1 year he was on the Pelicans when he was fantastic. Even with a team that's not crazy, the coaching isn't crazy. They're building a foundation in New York, which is, it's been a long time coming for the Knicks fans. I feel for them. Their ownership is horrendous. Jim Dolan should not be owning, James Dolan, whatever his name is, should not be owning an NBA franchise. Yeah, like it's only up from here for the Knicks. I hope so, but can they make a deep playoff run?
No,
it remains to be seen.
I
would love to see the Nets go less far than, or I would love to see the Knicks go further than the Nets, but I don't know if it's happening.
Yeah, I mean, D Rose, he's good. He's not. He's not. I don't know if
he's not the D Rose of old, but he's D Rose,
and we're never getting that D Rose back. RJ Barrett, it's good to see him. He's playing pretty decently this year. Nothing crazy. No numbers that pop off the charts. He's 17.6 points per game. He's on 5.7 rebounds, 3 assists. So he's not popping off, but solid player to have. Third overall pick, I believe that's when he was picked. Maybe you'd want a bit more than that, but he's still a young guy. And look, any playoff experience is good experience. And I can't speak to this because I'm a Sacramento Kings fan. Knicks playoffs, it's only good. That's only beneficial. You're getting in, playing good basketball, more experience. Hey man, Knicks, even if they get swept, it's the streets of New York, they're gonna be partying. So
facts.
On to the next topic, the Boston Celtics. Talk about a team that has really underperformed. 6th in the East, Milan. 6th, right on the border of the play-in game. Could very well drop to that point. Current standings have them 35-31. These guys were in the East Finals last year. I had them in January as potentially making it out of the East, but man, how that has not turned out. They are really struggling. What's going on in Boston?
There's not really much to say, to be honest. I mean, it looked like they were going to be nice. They picked up Tristan Thompson, who's not a fantastic player, but he fills a gap that they needed, which was a big, right? He's definitely an upgrade over. Did they have Aaron Baines before? Or was that on the Suns he was playing?
They've had him around, but
they had Daniel Tice. Daniel Tice is he had a good playoff run last year, but he's not a big for a contending team in the East. Tristan Thompson's played on a championship team, on a team that's made the finals a few times. He's a good piece for the Boston Celtics, and not much is. They've honestly regressed a little bit since signing Tristan Thompson, in my personal opinion. I think Jason Tatum has been doing really well this year. Popped off maybe like last week. I think he had like 60 points. He recreated that Will Chamberlain picture, but there's not really much else to there's not really much else to talk about in Boston though. Like there's nothing standout, Well,
Kemba Walker, that's a tough contract.
He's had a rough time in Boston. I'll give him that.
But the emergence of Tatum and Brown, that's the two biggest talking points here. Can Brad Stevens right this ship that's going in the wrong direction? We'll see. But again, man, Boston is another team that's going to have big talks. Do they bring back Marcus Smart in the summer? You clearly got a franchise guy here in Tatum. Arguably, I don't know if you'd say franchise in Brown, but two very solid pieces to build your franchise around. But underperforming, very inconsistent. They should have been locked in, pegged for those top 3 or 4 Eastern Conference seeds. They're right on the border, so I think they can still make some noise just because of the talent they have on that team. They could get into a favorable matchup and do something. Maybe come up against Atlanta in the first round. If that's how it plays out, I'd favor them, even if they were the lower seed, which they are at this current time. But again, still not a lot of basketball to be played, but these guys got to get it right this ship, man, because they do not want to be playing in that play-in game. I don't think anybody wants to be playing in that game. Certainly LeBron James doesn't want to be playing in that playing game, and we'll get to that later. But is that all you got on the Celtics?
Yeah, I think so. There's not really much else to be said. I bet Celtics fans will be really disappointed, even with a sixth seed, to be honest. The only way, the Celtics can right this wrong, in my opinion, is a conference finals or a finals appearance. We'll see if and how that happens, but that's all that is there to be said about the Celtics. Good luck to them.
Good luck from a Raptors fan. Okay.
Okay, I don't know why you're. Listen, we have a championship more recently than the Celtics, so you can diss all you want.
All right, so next team up, I guess we can just touch on these guys quickly. The Charlotte Hornets. What do you have on the Charlotte Hornets, man?
Shout out to John Nardi. The Charlotte Hornets have exceeded all expectations this year.
Yeah.
Drafting LaMelo Ball. When he was healthy, he was fantastic. It was also became House of LaMelo on House of Highlights instead of House of Zion season before, and House of LeBron the last 10 years before that. LaMelo's been really, really good. Everyone was crucifying them as well for the amount of money they paid Gordon Hayward. He's been playing well when he was healthy. They've just had a pretty decent run, I'd say.
Yeah, no, they've. Gordon Hayward when healthy, that's the big issue, right? They paid him a lot of money. Everybody was memeing that contract back when he signed it. But the emergence of LaMelo Ball, man, this guy, people doubted him, kind of coming out of not playing in college, kind of having a non-traditional route to the NBA. But he's really proven his worth. Will he win Rookie of the Year? I don't know. That's still up for debate because he's missed a bit of time. But yeah, no. PJ Washington, shout out new father, Malik Monk. It's not a lot of superstars, man, but it's a solid playoff team. I mean, they're 32-33 as things stand. But I think they're firmly in the playoff picture. Again, they're probably a first round out, so we shouldn't be allocating too much time to them right now. They're in the 8th spot, so they'd be in that play-in tournament. But I think it'd be a lot more exciting for me to be watching them in the playoffs to see what they could do personally.
Yeah.
So yeah, Hornets segment only a bit of time on them, but no, you got to shout out what they've done this season, man. I had them personally nowhere near any of the playoff picture. I had the Raptors where they'd be, but I thought they were going to fall off for a while just because, LaMelo Ball, very young guy, not super NBA experience, obviously a rookie, but they really, really put it together. So even if they don't even make the playoffs, even if they fall in the play-in round, shout out to them, man. That's good foundation for the future.
Facts.
So
I'll just quickly go into the last point that we have about the East. Got to give a quick shout out to the Washington Wizards, who have consistently in the last 5 years been underwhelming in the NBA. John Wall was injured for night in and night out. They pulled the trigger on a huge trade with the Rockets early on in the season. They traded, one of their best ever players, John Wall, for Russell Westbrook, who, he's really, really done a lot for the Washington Wizards, especially in this last month. In the month of April, they went 12-5. Westbrook is, after all the hate and all the disrespect he was getting every day on Twitter, on Instagram, on whatever it is, Westbrick, you can't win, this, that, and the other. Listen, he's single-handedly dragging these guys in. Bradley Beal's been playing well, but a lot of the credit has to be going to Russell Westbrook. He's been 100%. Putting up triple-doubles after triple-doubles. He's on the verge of breaking Oscar Robertson's triple-double record this season, which would be unbelievable in this modern day. He's probably going to be going on his 4th straight season, I think, averaging a triple-double.
I believe he's done it every year back dating to when he first did it and won the MVP. Yeah,
since the MVP. It's crazy how it's like that was the main case for his MVP, and now it's just no one's even talking about it. But
exactly, and that's what I was going to bring up, Milan. You brought up a great point there. Our notes here have Westbrook silencing the haters on a nightly basis. Could you say he's also doing this in silence? Like his MVP case was built around the triple doubles, and now he's doing it all the time. Nobody talks about it because it's just such a common occurrence. He's so successful, but he's just going along doing his thing. People don't really care about the whole triple double thing anymore. But Washington had a really rough start to the season, but he's really put it together. He's coming in playing hard every night. They're still in the 10th spot. I think they'll pull away from the Raptors and make it into that play-in game. But maybe they surprise someone because you got Brad Beal, you got Russ Westbrook. That's a really good backcourt. I'm looking at the other teams in the playoff picture. I'd take that backcourt over a lot of Eastern Conference teams, in my opinion, if they can play to their full potential. What are your thoughts on that?
Agreed. I'd say they're probably like if basketball is only played by two players in the backcourt, I think they're probably the 5th or 6th best team in the East.
Yeah.
They probably have a better backcourt than Philly overall, but Philly is also Philly.
Yeah, you got one of the MVP candidates in Joel Embiid.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's why it's not a two player game, obviously. But I'll come back to that Westbrook bit later on. But I think, are we good on the Eastern Conference for now?
Yeah, no, I think we're good. Let's just go on to the West then.
Do you want to open up with the West?
All right. Well, listen, everyone always had a point to say about LeBron playing in the cakewalk East, this, that, and the other. He goes to the West. All of a sudden, all of these superstars leave. You got KD going to the East. You got Kyrie staying in the East. You got James Harden going to the East. All the best players ended up leaving just because LeBron showed up, and no one's saying anything about the West now. No one's calling it a cakewalk now because now there's still a few good teams. But it's just so funny, the narrative that's being built around LeBron. It's the same thing that I see with Westbrook in terms of this triple double thing. When other players get triple doubles, I see a lot more praise. One of my favorite players, probably my favorite player right now, Luka Doncic. When he gets a triple double, everyone's raving about it. When Russell Westbrook gets his 174,000th triple double, no one's talking about it. It's just, it is what it is. People like to hate on greatness.
Exactly. But yeah, over to the West now. So are the Jazz a regular season team, Milan? They are currently first in the West, one game clear of the Phoenix Suns in second, which is my biggest surprise to me this season. The Suns in second, but the Jazz, they've gotten a really hot streak earlier in the season. They've pretty much, that's catapulted them to the top of the West, and they've stayed there pretty much ever since. This home record they have, I'm looking at the standings right now, is astounding. They're 29-4 at home. Away, they're only 19-14, but that's still above 500 basketball. In conference, 24-12. They're first place for a reason. What are your thoughts on that? I think they're legit. I don't know how far they could go in the playoffs. I don't know if they're coming out the West, but I definitely think they're a legitimate team that you have to at least take notice of.
This reminds me a lot about that Atlanta Hawks team. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
the one that went like
15.
Yeah, I think they went like 66. They won over 60 games.
They had 4 or 5 All-Stars on that team.
They had 4 or 5 All-Stars, and then they did nothing in the playoffs because they came up against LeBron and they got destroyed.
So is that the path these Jazz are going down?
I have a feeling that's what's going to happen because I don't know. I'm sleeping on them. I like Donovan Mitchell a lot. He's a great player. I appreciate Rudy Gobert's defensive ability, but the dude can't do anything offensively, which is, just considering the state of the NBA today, it's not a good look. For one, I probably say I appreciate defense a lot more than others. I think that's why for me, when I hear people like Draymond Green say I'm the best defensive player in history or top 5 or whatever it is, it's not, I don't see it as complete blasphemy almost, but I don't think he is, because the guy can guard 1 through 5 very, very well. And what he brings to the team defensively is great. Which is why, I'll give Rudy Gobert credit. He's been 2 or 3 times straight defensive player of the year now.
I'm not entirely sure on that, but I'm just looking at some of the stats. Like, they're obviously a first place team. You're going to have good numbers, but 116.5 points per game, that's third. 48.2 rebounds. That's first. Points allowed, fifth. Like, these guys can play basketball, and they're first place in the West. Obviously, they can play basketball like this. We're not talking about a floundering 500 team.
Yeah.
But it's just the teams under them is the teams that really scare people. Is the Clippers, the Lakers. You could even throw in the Suns this year with how well they're doing. Maybe they're not the true number one seed, but I think they can't just be a pushover in my eyes. Like, they've got to where they are based on how well they played. Even I don't think the Nuggets are going to do anything special this year.
Damn.
And we'll get to that, even with Jokic having an MVP season, he'll probably cap that off later this month. But yeah, you can't just disregard Utah. I don't think at all. I don't think so.
I don't know. I wouldn't be shocked if this team went out first round. That's all I'm saying.
First round exit.
I would not be shocked if this is the first seed that goes out first round.
This guy came with the hot takes today. Let me tell you.
If you remember when we did our show in second year, I was also a Utah Jazz hater back then.
I remember. No, I do.
I actually didn't even say they were making the playoffs that year. They proved me wrong, and they're a good team. But I just there's nothing crazy there. That's my opinion. That's my point. Like, and when you look at the bottom of the West, which we'll get to a little bit later, I can see a lot of teams upsetting them.
I just can't see it personally. I think the West is a lot weaker this year than in the years past.
For sure.
But yeah, I think we've said all we need to say about Utah. Okay, next up, Chris Paul in the. Okay, so talking about the Suns, Chris Paul in the MVP race. What are your thoughts on the Suns this season? For me, they're the biggest surprise team. I'm not shocked, but I'm definitely surprised to see where they are. I did not think they'd be second and battling out with Utah for first in the conference. I thought they'd be comfortable, fourth, third, fifth, in around those seeds. I did not have them fighting it out for the top of the conference in my eyes when we came into the season.
I mean, let's be clear. The Suns are a good team, but their seeding also reflects a lot on the fact that LeBron James and Anthony Davis were out for a very long time.
Yep.
A lot of teams in the West have been struggling with injuries. Jamal Murray went out early, which we'll talk about. The Portland Trail Blazers, after a really good start, fell off big time. And it's still, as much as it's not as great as years past in the West, it's still competitive, right?
Yeah.
So the Suns, hats off to them, and I'm not shocked because we saw Chris Paul do this with a 0.5% chance of making the playoffs last year with Oklahoma City Thunder.
He almost dragged that team along with Lou Dort, but in that game 7, but in that series, but he almost dragged that team to a second round upset. And man, had they upset the Rockets last year, I had some drafts saved in my phone. I want to let those fly, but no, man, you cannot disregard what Chris Paul has done. I wouldn't call him an MVP. I think there's players more deserving of that, but just the way he perfectly slots into that team. He gives Devin Booker an experienced member in his backcourt. He gives DeAndre Ayton a really solid playing card. Ricardo Rubio.
My man. Wait, he's on the thing now, though. He's on the Timberwolves.
I'm just saying, talk about an upgrade, though.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I wouldn't call Chris Paul MVP. The MVP numbers this year, maybe has he
his
won
numbers
more?
Are a lot like his numbers are a lot like Lowry's in like every single season. It's just the fact that he's
consistently solid.
The fact that he's got this team from where they were last year to second in the West is what his argument is, because the narrative around the Suns has always been they're a veteran or a great piece away from being a competitive team.
And that's the piece.
And they got it. And, Devin Booker's been great now that he has sort of a mentor to kind of show him the ropes of what it's like to be a competitive group player in the playoffs. Because we knew Devin Booker was too good for that team. Devin Booker, 70 points against the Celtics a few years back. Most points since Kobe. Rest in peace to that king. But, we knew that team was almost there. And I'm happy that the Suns picked up Chris Paul when they did. It's great for Devin Booker. It's great for Phoenix. And Well, we'll see how deep they go. Also, that bottom of the West is looking a little dangerous for them, but we'll see how deep they can go.
Yeah, it all depends on who they match up against in the playoffs. I think if they match up early with the Lakers, that's the end of their run. Personally, I can't see that. Man, the Lakers are, and we'll get to the Lakers. They're up in a couple points here, but I think the Lakers can really come and mess up a lot of teams' ambitions this year just based off where they're seated. Like they're going to be playing the top teams in the West earlier than they probably would have liked to. But I think, yeah, no, definitely to wrap up the Phoenix point. Shout out Phoenix, man. I think it's really good to see them finally playing winning basketball. Although I'm a Kings fan and they're in the division, hey, I'd rather Phoenix thrive than Golden State. You know what I mean? So, yeah, that wraps up Phoenix. So up next, your boy Luka Doncic. What are your thoughts on the Mavericks this year? I know you watch a lot more Mavericks than I do. How do you think they've fared this season? Where do you project them going forward?
It's interesting because when the Mavs picked up Porzingis at first, we thought it was going to be, a great duo.
Mm-hmm.
Porzingis, I feel, hasn't really met the same level and expectations that he had back in New York.
Yep.
in his first few years of his career. It seems almost like a one-man show in Dallas, with all due respect to the rest of the team. I think Luka needs a lot more help over there. I don't know if he can make a deep playoff run. I would love to see it. That's my guy. Like since day one, that's been my guy. Since before his draft, people were disrespecting this guy, saying like he was undoubtedly the best player in that draft, and it wasn't even close. It wasn't Ayton, it wasn't Trae Young, it wasn't any of those not scrubs, but it wasn't any of those guys compared to Luka. Luka's a generational player.
100%.
If he hits his peak is the level of the MJ, of a LeBron James, truly and unbelievably. He's great at every aspect of the game, and I hope that the Mavs can surround him with a bit more talent in the next few years. But this year, I don't know. Who would they be facing first round? The Clippers again?
As things stand, they're in fifth. So yeah, they'd be in the 4-5 spot with the Clippers. But even Dallas, or no, even LA, and maybe even Portland, if they get a couple wins and Dallas slips up a bit. So Dallas honestly could very well slide in to that 7 through 10 range. I don't know if it'll happen, but a couple of losses, you get complacent here and there. That's the big thing about the playing tournament. And we'll talk more about whether we like it or not later. But yeah, Dallas, as of right now, they'd be facing off. If the season ended today, they'd be against the Clippers, and that matchup is just terrible for Dallas. So I think Dallas definitely has the pieces in place going forward, but not this year. I
was actually just going to say, I think it's better for Dallas to go into the play-in and play the Jazz first round than it is the Clippers.
Yeah, I'd agree with that, honestly. I would. Because we saw they gave the LA a run last year, but I think the Clippers really are going to make some noise this year.
That I don't know about. That I don't know about. Listen, after the first round, it's kind of curtains for those guys.
You don't have them making it past the first round?
Absolutely not. No, after the first round. After the first round, it's curtains for those guys.
So you don't have them making it past the second round? You don't?
Absolutely not. Listen, We're talking about one of the most cursed franchises of all time, bro. And like everyone's saying, yeah, Paul George's playing good. I don't care. Let me see it in the postseason. Let me see playoff P. Let me see pandemic P. This guy is a scrub. They lost a 3-1 lead to the Denver Nuggets that I predicted last season. Everyone called me a fool. I said this before the playoffs started. I said the next round, in the second round, the Denver Nuggets will upset the LA Clippers. When it was 3-1 to the Clippers, I still said, don't worry.
So you're not wrong. You did call that. You did.
Man's gotta stop this about the Clippers. All this propaganda. There's only one team in LA as far as I'm concerned.
The disrespect, man. I think the Clippers have been really solid this season. They're in fourth. They're not like top of the West, but I feel like they've figured out that they don't need to be at the top of the West. I feel it's a weird season. It's a shortened season. When it comes down to it, man, you got Kawhi Leonard, you got Paul George, you got Serge Ibaka, you got those three right there is a really solid.
Pat Bev's still there.
Pat Bev. You got a really solid foundation to go and make noise. They were expected to challenge for the West, obviously, last year. Everybody knows what happened there. We just talked about it. I got the Clippers, honestly, making the West Finals at least. At least.
For the first time in history, no chance, bro. If the playoffs were to start right now, hypothetically, who do you think they'd be facing in the second round? Is it the Lakers?
I think that's dependent on. No, because you'd have to get the set. You can't. Yeah, we can't even really say if the playoffs were to start right now because the playing games.
Yeah, the playing game. Yeah, that's true.
That's no, but like,
there's just, yeah, they can beat. Wait, I just realized. Yeah, no. Because the Lakers, if they pick up that fifth spot, they're going on first round. Forgetting second round. But it's just, it's literally it's like a it's the history of the Clippers. It's the history of the Tottenham. It's they create many shots, but in the end, they're always lacking something. And I wouldn't be shocked. Listen, that the Clippers. Kawhi Leonard is the only person I respect. Kawhi Leonard and Serge Ibaka are the only people I respect on that team. Paul George, I like this guy so much, and he's been an absolute letdown in the last few years. Ever since that MVP run he had a couple years back, where he was not even close to the MVP, but he was in the top three kind of thing.
He made a push for it, but he wasn't gonna win.
Yeah. He was basically just the third best, but he wasn't like the difference between third and second and first was this big, and the difference between first and second was like this big kind of thing. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I'm calling them going out second round.
Damn, noted Clippers hater over here. All right, I'll keep that one. I'll keep that one in my notes when they make the West Finals. I'll let you know. All right, over to across the hallway in LA. The LA Lakers have been struggling without LeBron James, as we have seen. Will it affect them in the long run? Clearly, you don't think so. Sounds like from what we've talked about so far today, you think the Lakers can beat anybody. Doesn't matter where they're seated. Elaborate on that.
Well, the thing is with this season, like, home court and all that kind of stuff doesn't matter since there's no fans. It fully does not matter. Like, everyone's playing in an empty arena. It's the same thing as basically just a scrimmage at LA Fitness. It's no one's there. Don't worry about it, kind of thing. The only team that maybe has that going for them is the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets played well last year against the Lakers. But they played in Orlando. What am I talking about? Yeah, the only team that really has that advantage is the Denver Nuggets with the altitude and stuff like that. Yep. But like we're talking about like LeBron James, like the king from Akron. Like we're talking about LeBron James here. He doesn't lose. Like when he loses, it's because the team is just too big, too strong. Someone like the Brooklyn Nets, someone like Prime Warriors side. We've seen him lose against the Mavs back in the day, but that was a different time. We'll forget about that. That's fine. But I feel like the Lakers haven't gotten a lot better since last year. They lost a lot of key pieces. They lost Dwight Howard. They're replacing with, I feel, a better player in Andre Drummond this year. Mm-hmm. But the loss of Rajon Rondo was a little big. I know he's not the best. I know he's not, the prime Rajon Rondo that we saw before, but playoff Rondo is also just a fantastic player, and the pedigree he brings to, a playoff team. They're, for me, the best defensive team in basketball right now, which is exactly why they're going to be a great matchup for the Nets, because they're good offensively, like very good, like top 3 to 4, but they're like number 1 defensively. And that's exactly what you're going to need to fight off a KD, a Kyrie, a James Harden.
Yeah. A big 3.
Because when everyone talks about that finals matchup, they say, who's guarding KD? Or who's guarding, like, you know what I mean? Like, don't worry, they'll guard them. Like, they may not, lock them up, but they'll guard them.
Yeah,
they'll guard them.
They have guys to throw on them for sure. I don't know, man. I think the Lakers, they better make it out of the second round. I think they will. You throw a healthy LeBron, Anthony Davis combo, that still ranks up there as the top duos in the league, if not the top. So for them, yeah, I think they're going to coast the rest of the way, make sure they avoid the play-in tournament. But just get that top 6 seed locked up and go from there. Because I think they truly believe that they could beat anybody in the West and probably even the league for that matter. You look at what happened with LeBron, and I don't want to make this a big LeBron conversation. He's talked about enough in wherever, but we look back in the 2018 Cavs, right? And that was not a special team, but LeBron knew that he could himself and his team could beat anybody if he played as well as he knew he could. And that's what happened. So I think the Lakers are going to think the same thing. They think, hey, we have LeBron, we have Anthony Davis. We'll go toe-to-toe with anybody. So, yeah, I think they better make it out. They better make it out the second round, or else it'll be a big disappointment because these guys have had championship aspirations ever since LeBron got to LA, and especially even more so after winning the title, and they want to defend that crown. So I really hope they match up with the Clippers, but not in round one. I want to save that for the West Finals. But who knows? With the way the seedings are, we might not get that. So, yeah.
And another interesting team in the West right now is the Golden State Warriors, who look set to be in the play-in tournament, and look, if they were to play in the play-in tournament, probably going to be in the 8th seed. Basically, my question is, like, if they do make it, are they about to be the greatest 8th seeded team of all time?
We had this conversation.
Steph Curry's been playing.
We had this conversation last year, and every time a team gets hot near the end of, not all the time, but are they the greatest 8 seed of all time? No, I'd say it's on the backs of Steph Curry and Steph Curry alone. You look at what they've done with him on the floor, with him off the floor. Totally different team. When he has to be firing on all cylinders from that even have a chance at getting to the first round of the playoffs. Like, this team without Steph, had Steph gone down with an injury like he has many times in the past, they would not even be close to the playoffs. So it's on the back of Steph Curry, really, for me. That's obvious with the way he's played this season. He's been ridiculous. People have been in the MVP conversation. If he got it, it'd be an atrocity. I don't think an 8th seed should get.
Here's what I wanted to say, though. The thing is, I'd say personally, this is his best season. It's better, like, personally, just how Curry's playing. It's the best he's played, even in contrast to the other seasons that he's won MVP in. So that's the only case he really has, because if he was that fantastic on a winning team, he was an MVP candidate. Right now, he's on a losing team, and he's even better.
And he's really showing his value right now because he's on a team that's 500 right now, like literally 500, 33 and 33. Yeah, man, without his contribution, they would be, it'd be tough. It'd be bad times in the Bay. So are they? No. For me, no, not the greatest, because they're not a team. They're one guy. It's one guy's.
Draymond's good.
He's not
offensively, not, but
2015-16 Draymond isn't walking through those doors. You know what I mean? Like, it's all in the back of the Steph Curry guy. So it's, however I can't speak. However far they go is dependent on him, but it's first round exit at max for me, I think.
Yeah. I mean, if they do make the 8th seed, I can see them upsetting the Jazz. Not the Suns, but the Jazz.
This guy and his hatred for the Utah Jazz never fails to amaze me.
Listen, it's just they're the Jazz,
We'll see, man. I think that the Jazz will do better than you think.
We'll see.
They really will.
We'll see. Let me line this up for you. So, as we've mentioned about a few times throughout the show so far, Bowen is a Sacramento Kings fan. Diehard Sacramento Kings fan. He's been there through all the struggles in the last few years, and this year, considering the playoff picture right now, seems to be kind of similar. Talk to me, Bowen. What's happening in Sacramento?
It's typical Sacramento Kings basketball, man. The less said about them, the better, honestly. De'Aaron Fox is a franchise point guard. He's really emerged this season. But, in February, they were game over 500, and then they just go on a 9-game losing streak. And then they crawl back up, get it into the playoff picture and near the mix, and then they go on another big losing streak. So they've won 4 straight. They might have really caused some serious dysfunction in Indiana with their win over the Pacers last night. But
yeah.
I don't know, man. This team, They need a new coach. They need better bench depth. Their bench is really, really bad. But yeah, Tyrese Halliburton was a really good pick for the future. Consolation prize in my eyes for missing out on Luka Doncic a couple years ago. But yeah, serious decisions need to be made going forward about the coach, because I think the only way Sacramento gets better is through a new coaching staff. I don't think Luke Walton is that guy. I've said this many times. But yeah, the less said about the Kings, the better. They're probably pegged in for the 10th pick, 9th pick, around there. Tough, because they have had played some decent basketball, but it's just marred by inconsistency, and that's pretty typical. So
that right there is kind of how I felt about Sacramento for like the last few years, at least ever since me and you've been going to school together. Ever since I've been watching a little bit more of Sacramento basketball, like they play good basketball, but it's just they're not winning.
Stretches,
they're not winning. They're not winning. That's the issue.
They're not playing winning basketball, and they haven't for 15 years.
There was that one year they nearly made the playoffs. I think they were like the 9th or the 10th seed.
Yeah.
It's just, it's better to build, I guess, than to be like a low seed and just go out early every single year. But at the same time, it doesn't seem to be much building. And I would hope eventually this kind of switches around and a little bit more is done out in Sacramento, starting from the coach. Luke Walton is not a good coach. Never has been, never will be. With all due respect to the guy, he wasn't a good player. He is not a good coach. Yeah.
It's tough, all you can really say. It's tough. So I guess the last team we can just briefly touch on here in the West is the Houston Rockets. What are your thoughts on the Rockets, Mo?
The Rockets. The Rockets. If you're an old fan of the show, you may have been tuned into this one time when we had someone on, and he was mentioning that the Rockets' best player at the time, he was a certain shooting guard. He called him a system shooting guard. So in theory, right? If he's only a system, so the system should still be good, right? But how come ever since this dude left, you're the worst team in the league?
That's beyond me. That's beyond me.
I kind of feel bad because their coach, Steven Silas, he's not bad. He was kind of given a rough card here. John Wall's been trash for years now, and he hasn't been any better in the last season. I remember they were on like a 24-game losing streak, and of course they came up against the Raptors. John Wall had a triple-double, and we broke their streak by giving them their first win in God knows how long. I just, Houston's in a rough spot right now. They were consistently just like at the top but not doing anything because they came up against the Warriors. And right now it's going to be like a long time for that, in my opinion, for them to start competing again. They don't really have much out there. John Wall is not the player of old. He's not the player we saw in the early 2010s.
Even up to 2017, that guy I had him as better than Kyrie Irving at the time. But
damn, ball. Ball. So we mentioned it earlier on in the show, the play-in tournament, which was introduced last year during the bubble for a week, because there was a few teams that were still in the running for the playoffs, but unfortunately missed out, whether it's due to their record or whatever it was. It's brought into basically the 7th and the 8th seed play for the 7th seed. The 8th and the 9th and the 10th seed play for the 8th seed against the loser between the 7th and 8th seed, and then they go through to get the 8th seed. No one really said much about it last year because it was all right, because Portland was going on a great run towards the end of the season in the bubble, and they needed that play-in tournament to play in the playoffs. But now that the Los Angeles Lakers are in that position, you got people like LeBron James coming out and saying, whoever thought of that should get fired. You had nothing to say about that when you were in the first seed. So I like LeBron. I think he's a great guy, but that's just a little dumb in my opinion. You're very selective about what you want to talk about sometimes. And this is like, it's only because you're in this position that you could probably play in it. Now you're all of a sudden whining.
Exactly. Yeah, no, there was a couple screenshots I saw on Twitter where last year he was saying, all these guys near the outskirts of the playoffs, let them fight it out. But now he finds himself in this position a year later, and he wants nothing to do with it. Obviously, nobody wants to be in that 2-game mini series. But yeah, man, LeBron, that's a tough look, my guy. That is a tough look. But again, you can't blame him for not wanting to be in that position. I don't think anybody would. So for me personally, do I love it or hate it? I'm indifferent. I need to see it. I need to see maybe a few more seasons of it, see if there's any weird trends. But I'm not gonna have a crazy take on it. I'm fine. I think it's cool because it allows 10 and 9 seeds to battle it out, and we saw how entertaining it was last year. Maybe this year it'll just be a bore fest. We'll see. But yeah, I'm cool with it. What about you?
The closest thing I've seen to it in like football terms is the championships playoff tournament that they have for the last team to make it into the Prem. And I love that, that tournament towards the end of the season in the championship. It's always fantastic. You always got some great teams fighting it out. And, this is very American to me, like the play-in tournament. It's a very American style. Just even the playoffs as a whole are a very American style. So like a play-in tournament doesn't really shock me. Like I thought this was kind of a long time coming for the NBA, to be honest, to get more teams, an opportunity. Because, the way American sports work, the league owns the teams rather than how it works in football, where each team has a specific owner and then they can invest as much as they want. So, I mean, I don't really like it or hate it. I'm indifferent to it as well, just like you are, because it should have been there already, in my opinion.
Interesting. You think it should have been there in the first place?
Just the way like the NBA works is that it's weird because the only places the first best place you can be in the NBA is a contender. The second best place is bottom of the East or the West. That's just not fair. So to add more teams that can potentially make the playoffs, it kind of takes you out of that stretch. So I feel like that's a little bit better. That's kind of the only thing that can really be said about it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see how it plays out this season. It was pretty entertaining last season, as I mentioned, but hopefully it provides some good basketball. But I think, I'll be way more locked in on the playoffs when those actually start. So we'll see. But we have a note here on the season schedule and how there's been a lot of injuries. For me, I don't know if it's the worst schedule in NBA history. I like that. I think that's kind of hyperbolic. I'm sorry if you feel the same way or different about that, but it's tough, man. Like they cobbled together the season, they threw it together. It wasn't exactly like thrown together at the last minute, but it was a lot of unexpected circumstances surrounding it. 72 games, shortened season. Teams, it was a very quick coming back from the bubble in Florida too. So it's just injuries happen. For me, I don't think it's the worst in history. But yeah, I think injuries happen. Probably we're seeing more injuries this year. We're seeing a lot of major injuries. What are your thoughts on that, though?
I don't think it's the worst in history, but I do feel that the schedule should be majorly to blame for the amount of injuries that we've seen. We've seen it in all sports. We talked about it in the last episode of when we were talking about footy. A lot of injuries happen because of how condensed the seasons were due to the fact that they had to play in the summer and this, that, and the other, no preseasons and not really enough breaks. I'm not a fan of it. It's not that I think it's the worst. I'm definitely not a fan of the way the schedule has been made this year.
Has played out, yeah.
With shortened season with 72 games, it just seems like all these games are being played one after another, just to force them out to try to get the season done by June. It'll get done by June at this point. Like the U.S., they've got to be given a lot of credit with how they've dealt with coronavirus in the last little while. They're much faster than us in Canada out here. They've gotten the vaccines out much faster.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure California is doing better than Ontario is, which is shameful. But yeah, that's all that really can be said. I kind of hope next season is different and the schedule is a lot better. Some of my favorite players have been injured this season. You got the likes of LeBron James. You got Jamal Murray. who's out for this season. You know, LaMelo Ball wasn't supposed to be back. He came back from his fractured wrist. Yeah.
Like it's tough, but again, shortened season. They weren't expecting this. They're doing the best they can, I think. So I think that's all that can really be said on that. We have a quick note here: MVP race. It has been a pretty big race, Milan. That's true to the point you made in the doc here. But for me, I think it comes down to the two guys, and that's Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic. For me, I'd give the nod to Jokic personally. Embiid has missed a bit more games, and I think that'll play into his factor of what it comes down to. Again, it looks kind of weird to have the MVP on the potential third seed, not at the top of the East where Philadelphia is. But yeah, for me, I'm giving it to Jokic. Obviously, I'm not voting on the process. I'm just a fan. But yeah, for me, it'd have to go to the Denver Nugget big man.
Agreed. I had Embiid as my MVP for a very, very long time. I think Jokic is a more complete player than Embiid, obviously, because Jokic can pass the ball better than a lot of guards.
Yep.
He can defend very well. He can score very well. He can shoot threes. You know, he's a little bit more complete than Embiid, but Embiid is just a smidge better. Just
overall, you said
at what he's doing, at playing defense, at scoring. His role, he's better. But the thing is, we've seen it for a few years now. Embiid just seems to be made of glass. This dude's getting injured year after year after year, and it's costing the Sixers. It's costing him, and if he can't stay healthy in the next few years, that's a question that Philadelphia should be asking themselves of whether or not they really want to keep him. Considering, he's putting up these crazy numbers, but he's always injured, always injured. Jokic, I love the guy. He's like I said, he's so well rounded, and I think he's very deserving of the MVP this year. A lot of people have had Steph. You know, he's been good, not great considering the team's record. Really should be taken into consideration.
100%.
Giannis, he's just the same guy he's been every single year.
On voter fatigue.
Just great, but and voter fatigue plays a part here. But he's a great guy. He's a great player, but nothing really special out there in Milwaukee that we haven't seen before in the last 2 years. James Harden also had a case, also been injured a little while. Also playing on a team with two other MVPs.
For me, you can't give it to Harden, man. This guy fractured the franchise in Houston. You talk about most valuable.
That's true.
We see the impact of the team when he left, but man, Harden should be disqualified just for that alone in my eyes.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, you can't be doing that, man. You can't show up the way he showed up to start the season. He basically was MIA. That's not valuable. That's ridiculous to me. But so yeah, for me it comes down to those two, Embiid and Jokic, and I'd lean to Jokic. So last couple points here. Do you want to take these away?
Yeah. So I guess we kind of touched on them when we were talking about the East and the West, but
yeah,
who is your favorite to make it out the East? And I'll go with mine.
Out of the East. So yeah, okay, I'll do East first, West second. For me, my favorite out of the East would have to be Brooklyn, as I mentioned earlier. Too much scoring, too much talent, really. If they don't do it, it's a massive shock. And out of the West, I gave a lot of praise to the Clippers, but I'm still going to go with the Lakers. I think it's been set in stone ever since the Harden trade that it'd be a Nets-Lakers final. So you're not coming here for maybe hot takes all the time, especially when I'm talking, because I'm Joe, level-headed rationality. But I think you look on paper, these are the two best teams in each conference, and they should be in the finals. So, yeah.
I'll agree with you that the Nets are the favorites, but my pick to come out of the East is actually the Milwaukee Bucks. I think this is the year.
Wow.
I think this is the year. I think Giannis is somehow going to beat the Nets, and they're going to make it through, and or whoever the Bucks play. I think we saw it a few weeks back. KD was firing all cylinders with Giannis' first game back from an injury, and they were playing fantastic basketball. I think they both went out for 40 plus. I think the Bucks have what it takes to beat them, especially defensively. Can they beat them remains to be seen. But I've got them coming out of the East personally. I would not. I'm obviously expecting the Brooklyn Nets to come out, but I would prefer the Bucks, and I would not be shocked if the Bucks were to make it out. In the West, there's only one team that's making it out, and it's the LA Lakers. The Clippers don't make me laugh. The Suns not good enough. The Jazz not good enough. Denver Nuggets missing a piece. The Mavs not good enough. No one else
and then after that,
in the West is good enough to compete with the LA Lakers.
I agree.
So yeah, I would love to see a Giannis versus LeBron finals.
Man, how good would that be? That would be
for me. LeBron takes that easy, like a cool 4-5. What's your thoughts?
Wow, I would love to see Milwaukee coming to the East. We've been talking about it for years. They should be there. 2-time reigning MVP. Couldn't get it done. I think this year's good for them, honestly, that they're not top of the East. They're kind of figuring stuff out, tinkering in the regular season. They don't just have one plan. They have multiple. I think this year they're going to have actually multiple ways to kind of play basketball. To play basketball. What am I talking about? To win games. It's not just one plan, right? So I'd love to see Milwaukee come to the East. I think that'd be ridiculous if they could do it. I just don't see it. I just think Brooklyn's too strong. But hey, that's playoff basketball, man. We'll see. So.
And what about if it was Brooklyn versus LA? Who you got making it out?
Both teams healthy. Brooklyn,
eh? How many games?
7.
Yeah. Interesting.
7. Yeah, because LeBron and AD these guys would be going for it, man.
I'm saying Lakers in 6 if it's Brooklyn.
Wow. So you'd have to count on one of their big 3 in Brooklyn having an off day or something, or an injury. But yeah, at full health, which who knows if we'll get to that point. Got to be the Nets. I should go place a bet. I should go place a bet right now.
Go ahead. Betway Sports, baby. Betway Sports. Yeah. Shout out to them. And who would be your dark horse prediction in both conferences?
Okay. Yeah, Utah.
One team that you expect to make the deepest.
Utah in the West. And
Utah.
I ain't got nobody in the East, man.
Isn't it crazy that they're first seed and they're still almost a dark horse?
Yeah, well, just because it's a weird season. Both LA teams are kind of floundering near the play-in game. And yeah, Phoenix. Yeah, Utah has come out of the pack and are in first, but I think a lot of people, myself included to an extent, don't have them as the odds-on favorites come out of the West. So totally, I totally agree with that. What about you? I don't have a dark horse for the East, by the way. I just
yeah, that's fine.
Kind of ruined the segment, but maybe Philadelphia. I don't
know. For the East, I got to give a shout out to my boy Reefsky. I'm gonna take my Washington Wizards to be the dark horse. I wouldn't be shocked. Listen, that backcourt of Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal can outscore any backcourt in the league. They can't defend. I remember
that's the issue.
Every year, Bradley Beal comes out with a new quote of things they can't defend. Last year it was a grandma crossing the road. This season it was a parked car. So I mean that's their issue here, but
yeah,
they can score a lot. Russell will be firing on all cylinders. He's going to be a man on a mission with all the disrespect. Stephen A. Smith got into it with him a little while ago.
That's right.
I know he's not happy right now with the kind of disrespect he's been receiving, and I'm sure he's going to be fighting for it when he plays. But that's why I got it for the East. And for the West, maybe Denver or Dallas, one of the two.
I don't see it with either of those teams, but yeah, I mean, and that's the reason it's called a dark horse. They're not expected to do big things. I'd say, no, that's very fair. Just looking at the teams available. So, no, I think both of us make good points there.
Yeah.
Lastly, you take the swim line. This is your segment.
All right. Segment. Well, y'all know what time it is. It's Que Jogador time.
Sir.
Bowen, you got a Que Jogador for this week?
I do. It's Russell Westbrook. We've talked about him all day. Again, this guy's ridiculous, man. The amount of slander this guy's seen. You've talked about it. We've talked about it all episode. He's gonna average a triple-double again. He's been playing really good basketball. He's helped turn around the season. Obviously, Brad Beal, his contributions can't be denied. But Westbrook, man, Russ Westbrook, he is so good, and he just doesn't get enough praise. So yeah, yeah.
My Kedra is actually the person that controls the lights in the New Orleans arena.
Okay.
You guys didn't see what happened. I think it was 2 days ago now. The Warriors were facing off against the Pelicans. Steph Curry was right about to shoot a three, and then the lights went out in the arena. Literally at the exact moment he was shooting a three, so he could not see. And it was funny how that worked, because actually, like, literally right after the ball was shot, all of a sudden the lights flicked right back on.
Okay, wow.
So I gotta give him for Kedra, doing whatever it takes to stop Steph Curry, because that's the only way you can guard him, by turning the lights off, it seems. So yeah, shout out to him.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Bowen, you want to wrap us up now?
Yeah, Milan. Well, it's been great talking basketball with you today. We'll get this episode out shortly. First NBA episode in a while, though. I think it's the first time we've talked basketball since September. So yeah, new logo, updated logo coming out. But yeah, Milan, great talking basketball again with you, my friend. Next week we'll be talking Champions League. I'm sure a lot to cover there. But yeah, more basketball episodes in the future to be expected. Thank you to anybody who listens. We appreciate you as always. And yeah, I got some ideas for the show coming up soon. But for now, just good to get back on track with basketball. So from myself and Milan, this has been SBST episode 3. And yeah, that's all. So catch you next time.
Yes, sir. Peace.